What's going on, everybody? See who's with me here. So you got a few people who are already commenting. Justin Montgomery is with us. Hey, Justin, I have a question for you. Let me know if you're hanging on the stream here, brother. Got kind of a special project I wanted to do today, and it would require playing your video because I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to talk about the things that you were doing in it that I thought were really good. And I wanted to talk about what are some things, what are some ways that we could even step that up to even another level? Because I know that you were training really hard in that. So let me know if you're here in the stream. I already had pulled it out, believe it or not. I've got it queued up here. And I figured, well, you posted it, so it's kind of fair game. But since you're in the stream, I'll even go a step further and ask you if you mind if we talk about that today. What's up, guys? Get on the gear. Gains for hire. What's going on, man? This is it's good to see you guys. I asked you last time, where is everybody from? Where are you at right now? What are you doing right now? I would be curious. Let me know, because it was crazy. We had people commenting from literally all over the world. From Australia. Don't ask me what you're doing up in the middle of the night like this in Australia. To, of course, we had people in England, in the UK, and then all over the United States and Canada. We even had some people that were from South America that joined us, and some various other European countries. So that was really freaking cool. Cool. Justin, do you mind if we play your video and we talk about it today, man? Because I saw your comment. You're like, man, I was really proud of that set, and I get exactly where you're coming from, and I could totally actually relate to your reaction, because I had an experience that was very similar to yours. All right, here we go. South Alabama. So not just Alabama, but South Alabama. California, and shaving my mustache at the moment. Zionic is with us from Detroit. We'll get into everything in just a couple minutes, guys, but I wanted to make sure that I got to everybody here. I wanted to see where everybody was coming from. Justin Montgomery is from Chicago having lunch. Oklahoma, what's going on? And of course, Lucas, are you the furthest away? He's out in Poland doing his cardio right now. All right, yeah. Jacksonville, Florida. Yes. Chris, what's going on, man? We got New Jersey. Okay, cool. Thanks, Justin. We will then. We got New Jersey. So see, here's the thing, man. I feel like bodybuilders in New Jersey are automatically, they've got like a 10% up on the rest of the world. You guys just have, I feel like, bodybuilding in your blood with like the Jersey Shore and that East Coast attitude. Like you're born with, you like already have a little bit of a bicep peak out of the womb. You know what I'm saying? Maybe a little, you could see the 6-pack abs just showing through if you're born in Jersey. That's the way I see it. Colorado. Tina's with us. What's going on, Tina? Welcome. She's from Santa Cruz. Hope you guys are having a good day over there on the West Coast, the East Coast. Peter from the UK. Yeah. Where at in the UK, Peter? Because the UK is a big place, man. There's a lot of UK. Turns out it's all over the place over there. Birmingham, Alabama. What's up, Bill? How's it going, man? GTL. What is GTL? The greater something, I bet. Huh. Malta. Okay. Wow. Malta, you guys have that massive cannon. You know what I'm talking about. There was a massive cannon that was installed on the island, like in Malta. They had like the biggest round ever designed. I don't know exactly the stats on it. My father-in-law went to visit Malta because he's a big fan of like World War II history and stuff. And he went and he toured that massive gun and the whole bunker that they had set up. The Jersey Shore. Yep. That's what it was. Gym Tan Laundry. Yes. You guys in Jersey, you've got bodybuilding in your blood. Whatever happened to the guys from the Jersey Shore, I feel like that was really short-lived and they all went down hard. Do you know what I mean? Like that was not a pretty thing. I think Mike, the Situation, I remember that when he showed up on the scene, there were guys on the message boards that were like, oh yeah, I know him. I know that guy, Mike, you know, he's in the bodybuilding scene. And, he deals, stuff. I'm not going to say the words, not what we use, but like recreational stuff. He sleeps on people's couches. Guy's a dirtbag. Like everybody knew Mike, the situation. I remember people posting about him. I knew nothing about him. All right, Middlesbrough up north. All right, we'll get this thing going, guys. We'll get this thing started here. So I appreciate everybody being here. You guys are freaking awesome. Shout out to Charlotte, North Carolina, and everybody else who's hanging with us. So here's the thing. For anybody, I kind of have a little bit of an outline to work with. And I want you guys to post up questions too, topics. It doesn't even have to be bodybuilding related, like anything that you want to talk about. I'm good to hang out, all right? Normally I record with Ron and Dusty on Mondays, but they were out at FIBO. They were just getting back today, so we weren't able to record. So I was like, oh man, this is a perfect time. Plus, I had some stuff that I wanted to tell you guys about. So format for the day, we're going to cover a bunch of your listener questions. I want to talk to you about a low dose Tren experiment that I may or may not be starting or may not have already started. We'll get into that. And I want to hear from you guys. You can wait on this one, but I'm going to ask you what you think a low dose of Tren is. Like, what's the lowest effective dose of Tren? We'll talk about that. And I want to tell you about loading on Retatrutide, because it is a freaking different ball game than loading without a GLP-1. And maybe I'll start with that. I think I've got a picture here, maybe even a video of, so here's the deal. I've been dieting hard, right? You guys know that. And I hit an all-time scale low in the past couple weeks. I'm down to I was 187 depleted. And I see that as this is happening, I'm losing any shape I still had left from bodybuilding going away. And I'm I got to load, and I'm not able to load hard enough. I need to start pushing harder. Because what I was doing is, not going too far off plan. I think I told you guys, I'd have a club sandwich. That would be my big cheat meal, 500 calorie meal. And then because of that, I'd be kind of full and maybe not eat a lot more food through the rest of the day if I had it at 3 o'clock. And, my calories would kind of cancel out. So I decided I need to up my game. And 2 weeks ago, we were downtown. I do Fridays. It's our date day. We get to go out of the house, do fun stuff. We went down to Eastern Market in Detroit, and I found this place, good Mexican food. And they had these awesome street tacos, which were twice the size that they thought they were going to be. I ordered 3 of them, had pulled chicken and salsa in them and everything. And I got the soft corn tortillas, and I ate 2 out of the 3 of them. And then we immediately went to this restaurant where I ordered this French toast. And here's what the French toast, here's my meal. I got French toast with bacon on the side. This stuff was really good, all right? It was so freaking decadent, though. That syrup stuff there was some sort of maple glaze. That butter on the top is infused with all sorts of sugar. It's got those candied walnuts on it. And these 3 pieces of French toast, absolutely. So if it were up to me, I would have eaten 1.5 and then saved the other 1.5 for 30 minutes and then ate it again. But we're sitting, because my stomach is just so much sugar. I blew through the whole thing. And then we were going to go across the street to go grocery shopping. And I swear to God, I was going to vomit. I was so freaking sick. I've never felt that way in my life. And I'm only using, it was 1 milligram of Retatrutide every 4 to 5 days, right? So it's not a high dose, being that the research on Retatrutide is being done on 4 milligrams a week, 8 milligrams a week, and 12 milligrams a week. So me taking 1 milligram every 4 days is a pretty low dose, right? Well, here's the thing, man. I realized first of all, I think it was the sugar, but I realized I can't just load in one sitting. Okay. So fast forward to and it was terrible. I didn't want to eat for the rest of the day. I felt like garbage. And thankfully, after about an hour, I did bounce back. But there was a minute there that I wanted to barf. Well, about an hour, I wanted to barf. So anyway, the following week, it's time to load again. I'm back down to 187. I need to get in a substantial amount of food. I need to be able to push myself up to if I'm 187, I need to get up to 193, would be perfect, right? And then from there, Now I'm going to be filled back up. I'm going to have strength in the muscle. I'm going to be able, my metabolism is going to be rocking. I'll wake up the next day starving. I'll have strength in the gym to carry me through my next several days of training. So it's really imperative that I get this solid load in. So it actually worked. I spread everything out. I went to Culver's. I got a double cheeseburger and a fries. Then I got 3 of these beautiful donuts. I didn't get a picture of the donuts. I was just too focused on eating them. And then from there, what else did we have? Oh, and I bought a large thin crust frozen pizza, and I ate that over the course of like an hour or so. That basically what it came down to. The pizza was like 100 grams of carbs, 40 grams of fat. The donuts were about 30 grams of carbs each, so about another 100 grams of carbs. Limited fat in the donuts, plus the burger and the fries was probably, another, I'd probably call it 50 grams of carbs and 40 grams of fat. So I got somewhere in the neighborhood of, 250 plus carbs in for a load, which traditionally on my normal days, I'm getting under 100 grams. So the long and the short of it is what I realized with Retatrutide and possibly with other GLP-1s, it's freaking hard to get loaded. I talked to Keith over at Parabolic, who's one of our affiliates. I can't mention codes and URLs and stuff on YouTube. You can hit me up in other places. We'll talk about that. But he said that he found that it is hard to grow muscle. It's hard to get loaded. It's hard to get full while on Reta, while on GLP-1s in general. I think it really comes down to dosing. But man, I really would have thought if the research is being done up to 12 milligrams on Retatrutide, and I'm taking 1.5 milligrams per week, I thought that I'd be low enough to still be able to fill out well. But it turns out I'm struggling to fill out on a very low dose of Reta. So I wanted to throw that out there to you guys because ultimately, I think there is really good benefit to this stuff. But, at the same time, we are in this game for bodybuilding. It's not just about fat loss. It's not just about weight loss. We want to be able to retain tissue and grow in the process. So anyway, that's my spiel on that one. And I'm going to continue experimenting with this. I found that at this point, I need more carbs now. I started finding that I just wasn't interested in training anymore to the same degree because my energy levels in the muscle, the muscle was just, it's not that I was weak. I just didn't have the get up and go because my carbs were so low. I started out with basically 1 carb meal per day, 45 grams pre-workout. And then I, over time, have now built that up to the point where now I'm at around 100 grams, 120 grams with a high day load. And next time when I load, I think I'm going to go a little bit higher. I'm going to shoot for 300 grams because I woke up the next day and I was I think the same weight or 1 pound up. Really, it wasn't that much of a change. So I know that I can handle more, Anyway, thanks, Tina. I appreciate it. Tina says, looking great, Scott. You know what? I feel great too. It's been a great year for me. I wanted to start this thing out. I got ahead of myself with saying, if you guys don't know who I am, which I think most of you do, my name's Scott. I'm a coach. I've been doing this for a decade full time. And I started coaching about 5 years before that. That said, I want you to understand that everything I tell you guys is just my opinion and my experience. I sit at this desk and I work with people all day long. This is literally what I do. So my experience is with a lot of different people. And over the course of time, it's literally been thousands. So I've figured out how to do things in a way that gets us to our goals. But that doesn't mean that my way is the only way. All right. So I would never claim that anything I'm suggesting or anything that I've figured out is the only way to do things. I'm just letting you know, here's what I've figured out as somebody that does this all the time. So I want to make that clear. I don't have the corner on being right. You know what I mean? In fact, and I can make mistakes too, so I don't claim to be perfect at any point. That said, if anybody is interested in reaching out to me for coaching, mcnallydiets@gmail.com is where to hit me up. And right now I have a wait list set up. Basically, I'll be able to get you started within 2 weeks. I put a lot of attention and energy into each person that I work with. So I don't want to just be like, here's your plan, go check in a week. I like to get to know each person, and that's a process. And I'm grateful that I'm in a position in my life where I don't have to just like, give me your money, I need to pay my bills. You know, I can set it up and we can take our time and we can do things the way I enjoy doing it. Because at the end of the day, I do this shit because I'm trying not to swear on the live stream. I do this stuff because I freaking love it. Anyway, let's get back to the stream, see what you guys are saying. All right. Zionic, you guys have some questions for me. And I am going to talk about Tren too. As you've coached and interviewed countless athletes, are there any common traits or habits you've noticed in the most successful bodybuilders? Yes, absolutely yes. And I just told a client about this morning. I've got a guy that I work with who he's doing a transformation contest. Looks incredible too. Like he's made a hell of a transformation. Not a big guy. He's only like 150, 60 pounds, but he's contest lean. I told him, I was like, dude, if you want to do a men's physique show, we could get you on stage looking like this. And he was like, no. He's like, I just want to do this transformation. I don't want to step on stage until I'm a legit bodybuilder. Fair enough. You know, I can respect that. But I looked at his diet. He had actually gotten sick. He's got a small child, and I think he caught something from his kid. And he has the runs for like several days straight. I've been having him send him pictures on text every day. I look at his pictures this morning, and he's super depleted. It's a non-training day, so his carbs they'd normally be lower. I said, hey, can you do the training day carbs? And he said, my appetite's still not great yet. It's a lot of carbs to eat. And I said, well, let's do this. Let's pull all of our protein sources back by 1 ounce today. That way, it'll give you a little bit more room, less protein, 4 ounces of meat per meal, plus a cup of rice or 2 cups of rice, and just do what you can. He was like, hey, no problem. Sounds good. I've got all my food in Ziploc bags. I'm taking it to work. I'll just figure it out as I go. So that's one way to answer the question. Another way is to freak out and lock up and say, I already have all my meals prepared. Resiliency. Kate D'Annunzio is a woman that I've had on the podcast a couple times. She's what is called a change expert. She works with businesses and individuals to help them actualize change, like when businesses go through big changes. She said to me, the people who are the most successful in life and in business are the people that are the most resilient. And I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, I work with some people who I tell them like, hey, we were going to do a cheat meal tomorrow. Can we move that up today? We need that cheat meal. It's a load. Like we're getting ready for a show. It's important. There's timing involved. We need to get that load in now, to keep you, so we don't get you too depleted. And they freak out. I had one guy who lost his mind on me. Lost his mind. He couldn't handle that. He was like, can you make up your mind? You told me Sunday. Now you want me to do it Saturday. Which is it? And I was like, well, I'm basing it off your pictures. Anyway, that was a whole other story. Somebody who was on Tren that shouldn't have been and had anger issues to begin with and a record. It turned out, I found out later, due to those anger issues, we're not all capable of handling every compound. That said, the faster that you can adapt and embrace change and adjustment, the faster you're going to be able to make the most out of it. Those are the people that are the most successful. I've seen it freaking time and again. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge, I think, for all of us. There are times that I can be like locked in my ways. Sometimes it's like there's no reason I needed to be. It's just, it can be hard to change, even if that is just removing an ounce of protein from your meals, because you're like, wait, I already have it figured out. Hold on, step back. Did it really need to be that big of a deal, All right. Let me see what else we have here. You guys start to load me up with some questions here, and I will be getting back. Oh, Andrea Watson from Germany. What's going on? Transplant. So Andrea Watson is a friend and a client of mine. She is from the U.S., and she freaking decided, I'm going to move to Germany. She got her citizenship there, and now she literally is living abroad. She speaks fluent German. She kind of even has like a little bit of a German look, you could say, you know, and she's fitting right in over there. So good for her. She just went to FIBO. She had a good time out there, it sounded like. Let me see what else we have going on here. All right. Try to see. We got some more people commenting on where everybody's from. I love that. Paulie from the Jersey Shore is still a big time DJ. Good for him. He invented that hair. Do you remember that hair thing that everybody was doing? That was quite a look, you know. It got very popular. Let me see. Sorry, I'm a little bit congested today, guys. We have some a lot of pollen going on in the air here. Okay, super interested, Scott, as I am 4 weeks out currently and taking 1.5 milligrams of Retatrutide per week, thinking of dropping it out and dropping it out this week. What do you think? You know what? My question to you, Gavin, would be, are you loading along the way? Generally, you know, I try to run somebody on a cyclical diet of some nature. You know what I mean? Where we're slowly or quickly depleting down, then a high day or some type of a load meal or a load day. And that starts giving me the information I need to see, like, well, how do they look when they're loaded? How much does it take to load them? And then we apply that into loading into the show. You know what I'm saying? So have you been getting any kind of a load in now? And is it working for you? Because if it's working for you, more power to you. You know, one thing I haven't messed with yet is insulin. Insulin might be the answer for me. I might actually need insulin to drive more carbs into the muscle. And maybe I'll try that this next week as an experiment on my load and see if I can get the scale to budge a little bit more. And yes, KS Berry, those were definitely candied walnuts. I'm telling you, that thing was freaking a crazy meal. 1 milligram, 7 days. Okay. Culver's is so elite. You know what? VJ, you guys know VJ from Bodybuilding Nerds. He absolutely loves Culver's. I took a picture of my Culver's and I sent it over to him. In fact, I wonder if I still have that. Oh, I sure do. Here's my Culver's burger from the other day. What do you think of that? Was it like a double patty? And those crinkly fries, those were something else. They were good. You know what I'm saying? It was like a throwback. That reminded me of like fries that my grandma would have made me in the oven or something like that. Why don't people use more Tren E than most choose acetate? You know what? That's a great question. I mean, if we look at it, long-acting compounds like Tren E, or let's even say Mast-E, or let's even say Test-E, they're more cost-effective, right? I mean, you might pay, what, $10 more for a Tren and F8 vial compared to a Tren Ace vial, but you get 200 milligrams per milliliter versus 100, you know? There's definitely some advantages there. I guess it depends on how you look at your cycles, you know? I've seen Tren, because it is such a powerful compound, and I look at some compounds, and once again, like I said about everything, this is just my perspective and my experience and my opinion. So I'm not saying that I have a corner on knowledge and that, you know, you guys even have to agree with me. But I kind of look at cycling as, for males especially, that we have our compounds that are kind of our heavy duty background compounds that we are going to run through the cycle. I would look at, say, for instance, test as being that, right? A lot of times I don't even touch the test through the entire cycle. That's just running in the background at whatever dose we choose. Maybe we have EQ in there. EQ would be another great compound. We're running test and EQ. Or DHB, dihydroboldenone, is a freaking beautiful compound. We're running those two long term in the background. Then I like to look at a powerful compound like Tren Ace. I like to get in there and hit you with it in a surgical way that we can get the effect we want when we want it, and tweak that effect and see the results almost instantly. You know, if we look at Tren Ace as being a contest prep scenario, Generally, I would add that in toward the end, last 8 weeks of the prep, maybe. All right. Let's say that 16 weeks out, we start test, 12 weeks out, we add mast-E, and then from there, we add in Tren acetate. Now, how would we split that up? I'd probably start with 2 times a week if your volume of oil was low enough for the test and mast. And then when we got up to 8 weeks out and added the Tren Ace in, I would split everything up into every other day. I just prefer that. That way, every shot is consistent. You're taking the same amount of oil every time you take a shot. There's not like one big massive shot on Monday followed by, a half a cc on Wednesday. It's all consistent. If we don't like how you feel on the Tren, we can immediately change that with Tren Ace. We can't do that with Tren E. And let's look at it in the opposite. Let's say that we're 2 weeks out, but we could use a little bit more punch. I generally try to stay pretty conservative with Tren. So if we have a lot of room to go up at 2 weeks out, you could add more Tren Ace in and have plenty of time to get really strong effects. In fact, you could add in additional Tren even in the last week of a prep and still get an effect from that visibly, So I like to look at Tren as being something that the best word I can use is I use it more surgically and I try to pinpoint with it versus my blunt instruments are going to be my longer acting compounds that I run in the background. That said, I do have situations where Tren E might be of benefit. God forbid we run Tren in the off season, right? I don't have a problem with it. I think that Tren can be a great compound, but we do have to recognize, the potential toxicity of Tren, the fact that it is just a really strong compound prone to a lot of side effects, right? So we're probably going to also think of dosing, but if you were a really good responder to Tren, and I've worked with guys that we give them EQ and they get nothing. We give them DECA, they don't feel good. There's something wrong with, every compound we use. Well, maybe we find they just get on really well with Tren. I wouldn't have a problem with it. I mean, let's say that you're a guy who's doing, 500 test and 400 mast, or 500 test, 400 EQ and 300 primo. You run a cycle like that. I wouldn't have a problem doing 500 test, 300 primo, and 200 Tren E for an off season. If you get on really well with Tren, let's try it. Let's see how you do as just running it as one of those longer term background compounds where we're just using it for an off season mass builder. I could definitely see that. Even in a non-competitive cut, I still prefer Ace though. I do. I like the control of it. I do though usually tend to go with long-acting mast. I find that as a coach, I haven't seen a difference between mast E and mast P, So generally my thought is that if we can get twice as many milligrams per milliliter, it's going to be logistically easier to get that in your body than, taking twice as much oil from prop. So if we have it in there long term, we're going to get what we want out of it. I'm not looking to surgically crank that up at the very end. Generally, if we wanted to do that with a DHT, we would then rely on an oral that we would layer in, say, Winstrol, for instance. If we wanted to get a stronger drying effect instead of trying to lay on more mast, then I'd add in maybe a little bit of Winstrol just to kind of hit it from that perspective instead. So it's a really good question though. Once again, just my perspective, and you know what, there are always going to be exceptions, because there is that guy that just does really good on Tren and his labs look fine on it too, doesn't get sleep issues, and that he could run it in the off season even, I'd say go for it. Parabolic in the house. Oh yeah. Low dose Tren is legit. All right. Now that we're talking about it, what's up, Parabolic Peptides? And definitely great supporter of our shows. I can speak no further about that on YouTube, but if you guys are listening on audio, then you hear the commercials. So anyway, let's talk about this. I'm sorry guys, because with this pollen and stuff, I have to use my nasal spray and blow my nose. I apologize. This is normally where I would like turn it over to Ron and Dusty and just lean out of screen for a minute. I got nothing. I'm going to put you on mute though, so you don't have to hear this. All right, let's reconvene. Appreciate your patience. So, here's the deal. We were, we were talking about my last cycle my cycle that I started up, and I started this cycle up with the intention of, really trying to retain, if not rebuild muscle. And I started out with 800 test, 600 EQ. And I didn't really think ahead, okay? I haven't personally run my own cycles in a long time now. It's been a while. I actually even had to go out and get this stuff. I didn't have like extras lying around. Initially, I didn't plan on doing EQ when I got stuff. But when I got stuff, I had bought a bottle of EQ. So anyway, long story short, I'm saying, I'm going to do the 600 test, or 800 test, 600 800 test, 600 EQ, right? And lo and behold, I get into it, and then I realize, you dummy, you only bought one bottle of EQ. This is not going to last long for you. And I realized that that's not going to work. So I thought to myself, well, that's when I said, what else do you have? I had a bottle of MPP. I've got some DECA. I also use 5AR topically. I use topical finasteride. So, my hair is already thin enough as it is. I mean, it's holding on. Hairline's pretty close to what it was 20 years ago. I can't complain. I've always had a very high hairline. Thankfully, it hasn't gone too much further. That said, I don't want to lose it any further. And if you are using finasteride with DECA, with nandrolone, it doesn't allow the nandrolone to convert to dihydronandrolone, which is gentler on the scalp. So it's actually a harsher compound, So I thought, I don't even want to mess with that. And I might have a bottle or two of Trenase laying around. Yeah. So let me ask you guys, that leads me to this. This is a question for you guys. What do you guys consider a low dose? And I'm talking very conservative dose of Tren Ace per week. All right. What do you consider to be a low dose of Tren Ace per week? And also keep in mind, I want to talk low effective dose. I met this guy on DM yesterday, I think it was. He's a CrossFitter, and he's told me, hey, I am doing TTRT. You can guess what that is. TTRT, test trend replacement therapy. He didn't call it that. I just made that up, right? TTRT. I like that. And he's taking I think I can't remember what the doses were, but it was like 230 tests per week, along with I think it was 30 Tren, something like that. And he said he feels increased performance benefit. Now, increased performance benefit and actual muscle growth are two different things, right? I've worked with a ton of guys, not a ton, but I've worked with my fair share of people that are performance athletes. And the cycles for those guys are way different than what we do for hypertrophy and bodybuilding. We can dose as low as 5 milligrams of Anavar and you're faster on the field. 5 milligrams of Anavar, spoiler alert, is not going to get you jacked and massive. Yes, it will increase your performance. You will feel stronger in the gym, but you're not going to get the most out of it. It's not going to be a very effective mass builder for you at 5 milligrams. It'll feel good. You will notice that, but feeling good, noticing it, and actually reaping the benefits of laying down new muscle is two different things. So let's see what we got here. Brian Nasser, what's up with the super chat, man? Thank you very much. Always appreciate and respect your insight, Scott. Thank you very much, Brian. I appreciate you, brother. And let me ask you, Brian, what do you consider to be the lowest effective dose of Tren. Spoiler alert, by the way, guys, I'm going to ask Dave the same question tomorrow, but it's just going to be like, what's the lowest effective dose of each steroid? That's what we're going to talk about. So Brian, I know you have a ton of experience as a competitor. I want to hear what you have to say, man. And thank you again for the super chat, brother. Dude, this is greatly appreciated, man. Parabolic's with us. What's up, Parabolic Peptides? By the way, I am a huge fan of just seeing your name. I want to mention that the SLU protocol is still going fantastic. It has absolutely been a game changer for me. 25 to 50 milligrams weekly. I disagree, man. I feel like 25 to 50. Okay, 25. What does that break down to? Hold on a second. I got to break out the calculator to figure this out. All right. What are we looking at? Let's just go 25 divided by, well, we'll call it 4. So that's 6.25 milligrams every other day. I don't buy it. Sorry. I don't agree. And we cannot agree and still be friends, by the way, guys. That's okay. Like, we are allowed to have disagreements. I'm going to hear some more. Okay, here. What else do we have here? I have my thoughts, and I'm going to tell you what I'm doing, but I'm going to wait to hear what you guys have to say first. All right, 25 milligrams daily of Tren works well for me, but I don't lose my crap from that amount either. Is 25 milligrams every day a low dose? Let's do the math on that. What is that? 25 times 7. 175 per week. Okay, I think we're out of the low dose territory, but we're close. I feel like we're close, you know? I mean, I want to be straight with you guys. When I first started using gear in bodybuilding, we were told on the message boards, you took 400 milligrams per week. Like, that was the dose you start with. That was the starting dose, 400 per week. When I started competing, though, number of years later, and I thankfully was able to work with a local guy who coached me. He had me run it for the last, I believe, 8 to 10 weeks of my prep at 50 every other day. So 200 a week, basically. And I was mind blown at how effective that dose was. In fact, I got better results with 50 every other day than I had running it on my own before at 400 per week, because I was doing everything else right, you know? So I would say we're getting closer. I'd say we're getting closer. We got Matt Sharp with us from Sharp Home Solutions. He says, but I have had people on as low as 25 milligrams and had great results. Is that 25 milligrams a week? Okay, you might be in there with the parabolic range. So parabolic also said 50 milligrams per week. Let me see. What does that break down to? 50 divided by 7 is what? It's 14 milligrams every other day. Man. I'll tell you what. I gotta shut a window here. I hear something running in the background. I'll tell you what. Here's what I've noticed. So, you know, I ran Tren that first time. I had that terrible experience because it was 400 milligrams every week. I then brewed my own out of the Finna pellets, right? I don't know if you guys remember those. You could go to like cattle supply, a place online, and for about $30, you'd buy this little plastic cart filled with pellets. And these pellets would be, you know, basically implanted into cattle to help beef them up right before they went to slaughter. Well, these pellets were filled with all sorts of glues and binders, and they're like a nasty bright yellow color, you know, and we would break them down and dissolve them and filter them through coffee filters with oil and solvents. And then we would use that, we would inject that as clean as we could, these Finna pellets. And you know, it's Trenbolone. So anyway, I brewed my own and I tried 25 every other day. And I do feel like I got something out of that. And I was able to I was able to avoid side effects, and then, but I didn't stay there. I just continued to slowly build back up to a higher dose. So I'm going to tell you guys what I've started doing here, and I've only taken one shot so far. So we'll see how long I actually stick with this. I'm going to break my shots up into 3 times a week, which that means I'm 1 day behind on my shots right now. I have to do my shot literally when we're done with this live stream. I've got, what does it break down to? It would be about 100 milligrams per week is where I'm at, split into 3 shots. So we'll see. We'll see what I get from it. So far, 1 shot in, I obviously don't notice anything. But I will say this. You know, we talked about low dose effective cycles on drugs and stuff last week. And I will say that if you have a really strong compound and you take a small amount of, like, you're if you don't have a lot of money, you're probably going to do better with a low dose of Tren than a low dose of Primo. You know what I mean? Or you're going to do better with a low dose of Tren versus a low dose of Equipoise. I don't know. This is kind of beyond what I do in coaching. We don't really mess around with, like, what would happen if, you know, I don't have anybody that we've just run 100 milligrams of Tren with per week. Nobody's wanted to. You know, we use more traditional things, you know, common cycles for the guys I work with. If they're an off-season type guy who just wants to look better, feel good, get into good shape, you know, maybe we'll do like a 300 test, 300 EQ, or excuse me, 300 mast, or 300 test, 300 Primo. Something like that would be like a pretty standard dose cycle that a lot of the guys I work with use. I want to see what other questions you guys have. So that's my story. I'm thinking that's ballpark about what I'll probably stick with here for a little while. About 100 milligrams per week. And I had to pull the test back a little bit. I just didn't need 800. So I'm going to be more at about, what will that be? 550, 600 test, something like that, with 100 milligrams of Tren Ace. So we'll see. I'll keep you guys posted on it. And, you know, everything's going good. I'm getting more consistent, or I've been consistent with training. Cardio's going great. I don't expect to get any kind of side effects from this. So that's just my thoughts, though. Lucas says he'd go with 100 as well. You kind of answered my question then. I think I'm going to 30 milligrams every other day to my test. Yeah, I think 30 milligrams every other day. I think that you're going to get something out of that. I mean, I guess it depends on what you want out of it, Stephen. You know, are you looking to, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, it really comes down to your diet and your nutrition, and the gear is just going to help push those things in the right direction. You know, I've found that in the past, running lower dose Tren, that I definitely felt a little something. You know, obviously the more you take, the more you feel, the more you get. But I don't think you're going to go wrong with it. And if you don't like it, here's the other thing with a fast acting compound like that. If you don't like what you're getting out of it, you could always bump it up a little bit later, you know. But yeah, I would much prefer starting low and then, you know, building it over time, something like that. What does Jordan say here? He says, I never ran less than 200 milligrams weekly, never more than 400 milligrams, but I think you could get some benefit from 100 grams weekly. I don't think you'd feel anything from less than 75. I don't know. I mean, I don't know about like results, like seeing muscle growth, seeing like additional like physical change. I bet you would feel it in the gym. 75, you know, I bet you would feel some additional benefits, especially depends on how sensitive you are. You know what I mean? If you just came off, like, what are you doing? Have you been on TRT for the last year and then you add some test and 75 Tren? That guy's probably going to feel something. But if you take Jordan, who's been on 200 to 400, and then he says like, oh, I'll take 75. Of course, he's not going to get anything. You know, there's kind of like a contextual thing to it. You know what I'm saying? I think that's got to be it. Do the shot on camera. What could go wrong? No. All right. Skip and I started out last prep at 75 mix. Probably means milligrams per week. titrated up to 175, and I would not consider, which I would not consider low dose. Yeah, I'd say 75 low dose. I'd say the 175, not so much. Did I miss most of the stream? What's up, man? Nope, you're here, brother. You're here. You only missed me talking about a couple random things like Tren. I'm waiting for you guys to throw some questions up here for me, and then I can start answering them, and then we can get to some real fun. I don't have to just talk about myself, be selfish. I talk about myself all day. Actually, I do have something here I wanted to show you guys. So I'm just kind of going through these questions here. Okay, let's see here. 100 milligrams a week, sleep-stide started for me. Yeah, I could see, depending on your situation, anything over. I'm surprised you got sleep issues at 100, man. Or, that does surprise me. But hey, everybody's unique and everybody's got a different situation. And I think that we all, like, who you are today, you might be more sensitive to 100 than who you are in a couple years. You know what I'm saying? Depends where we're at in our lives. If we're already under a good deal of stress, then those things add up. Victoria has a really great analogy when she talks about stress, and I've used it too with my clients, is imagine a bucket. And we could talk about inflammation in the same way, like we talked about allergies, for instance. Sometimes if you have allergies, you notice, like, what, I always get hay fever, but my hay fever is extra bad this year. Or, I used to always get hay fever and I didn't get it this year. I don't know why. A lot of that related to inflammation is that we have all these different events in our lives and these things that we do that create some type of a stress, and that's adding to that load. So imagine a bucket, right? Like a bucket that we're filling up with water. And let's say that you're under a lot of stress at work. You've been working late, maybe not taking as good care of your hydration as you should. Dump into that bucket, right? Now we're filling that bucket up. And then let's say that you also are staying up late at night. Instead of going to bed, you're scrolling on your phone. You dump into that bucket, and we're filling that bucket up. And if you add enough things to that, and then it's hay fever season, now all of a sudden at some point the bucket overflows. So if you can manage these things, look at the things you can manage. You can't manage the fact that, like, hay fever season is going to be here, right? But are there any other factors where you can reduce stress so that maybe it's not the straw that breaks the camel's back when it does come, So I think that we are all in different places. So, maybe I could be in a position where I could run a lot of Tren right now. My life is good. I'm really relaxed. I don't have a lot of stress, and all of a sudden I'm doing great with it. Whereas, 15 years ago, I might have been in a different position. So anyway, we could probably talk all day about Tren, right? 100 milligrams a week. You must like 7.62 by 39 millimeter. In fact, I can't show weapons on the live stream, but if you look over my shoulder here, you may or may not see a 7.62 by 39 millimeter behind me. You didn't. That was just an airsoft toy. All right. I do have some other stuff here to hang with you guys. And like I said, start loading me up with some questions. What's up, Scott? Yeah. You ready to post update pics yet? So here's the thing. And I see a couple questions coming in. Good. I'm going to favorite these so I can come back and make sure that I answer these. All right. But I do want to tell this to Nick and you guys. And I'm going to be completely transparent here. All right. So I'm 187 pounds, 190 pounds right now. Now, go back about 4 years before I got sick. I was at my all-time heaviest at 240, and I felt really good. And, after I got sick, I couldn't train as consistently as I wanted. And it had been a real struggle, for several years. And I'm really happy with what I'm doing now. But to be honest, I look at my starting pictures and I'm embarrassed of how I look. Like, flat out, I am, I will eventually show them to you guys, but I am genuinely embarrassed. I know that it's not like I was being lazy or, gluttonous or anything like that, but I don't feel good about those pictures. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard for me to look at that and show you guys that. And especially considering that I'm like part of the fitness world, I help people compete for shows and get into better shape. And for several years there, I was losing my shape and conditioning. And so it's a lot to wrestle with. And then fast forward to now and being at like 190 pounds versus 240, I also wrestle with the lack of muscle I have. So I feel a little bit overall embarrassed of how I look, honestly, if I'm being completely transparent with you guys. And I know I'm not alone in that. I think that for all of us, when we really do put so much effort into our physiques and energy and, so much focus and like, honestly, a big part of our identity is tied to the work that we do as bodybuilders at whatever level we're at. I'm not competing again, but I'm still a bodybuilder. I'm exercising, I'm eating right. I am still a bodybuilder to some degree, right? When we get so tied up into that as being our identity, then we are very hard on ourselves. So I want you guys to know that you're not alone in feeling that way. I feel that way too. And it may even be more magnified than some of you guys. I don't know. But yeah, so that's where I'm at with that. I'm going to just keep doing this for me and keep continuing to get in better shape. And eventually at some point, you guys will see the pictures. I'm shooting pictures every Friday. And then sometimes too, I shoot them Saturday to see how I looked after the load. But it's coming along well. I realize now, though, that my big thing is figuring out the load. As I mentioned earlier in the stream, that I think that this is the next step forward for me, is figuring out what I need to do to really fill out each week. And that's going to continue to step me forward with regaining muscle back. What else do we have here? When needs to sleep, Tren makes 2 hours feel like 8. Just add some THC edibles. All right. Scott, do you plan to add in some 5-amino to your stack? That stuff runs so well with SLU. I'll be honest that SLU has just gone so well on its own that I've really enjoyed the process of this. I started experimenting a little bit with DADA now, but I'm going to also hold off on that. I'm going to tell you right now, DADA, the endurance from it is freaking insane, especially already having been on the SLU. I've gotten a lot of really good results from it. I know that Parabolic has as well, if he's still with us. He's been, I think, using the injectable version. I've been using his 250 milligram caps, which I've only taken it two times now, and I'm probably going to hold off. But down the road, my thought is that, I've gotten a really good boost, which was a much needed boost, and it's gotten me doing the things that I need to do to be able to reach my goals. But I'm also trying to leave as many cards left in my hand to play later. That's kind of where I'm at. So I wanted to kind of get a vibe for, what does mot-c do for me? What does DADA do for me? But at the same time, I don't want to try to exploit all these things at once, because there will be a day that I want to discontinue using the SLU. It'll either have run its course or just feel like I'm ready for a break. And at that time, I'll want to know that I have another card to play. Basically, I want to keep as many good aces in my hand as possible. So I'm experimenting with them enough to kind of understand them, to see what my dosing will be, to see what the effect is like. And then from there, I'm going to hold off a little bit and then revisit it later. Getting into the Retatrutide, I feel that, we're coming from a completely different angle there, right? With GLP-1 and glucagon and blood sugar and insulin. All that stuff is a completely different direction, So I find stacking those two things together as being very beneficial, because now it's not two likes. They have their own mechanisms, and then from there getting into a low dose of T3 replacement, hitting it from that angle. I'm using about 25 micrograms of T3 per day. And I take that first thing in the morning fasted. I split it, and then I take it before bed on an empty stomach. And then adding in the anabolics. I'm trying to patch as many different angles versus being redundant is what my goal really is here. I had used a low dose of Clen longer term, just 20 micrograms. And that was for my breathing, to try to help with breathing. When I started the SLU, I discontinued that. And I'm now going to think maybe I'll add that back in, but as a fat burner, and actually work it up, over time, the way that I cycle it for fat loss purposes. Start with 20, 2 weeks later go to 40, 2 weeks later go to 60, 2 weeks later go to 80, possibly go to 100 for a couple of weeks, and then cycle off and repeat that whole thing. I may do that with Clen next, and that way I'm kind of hitting all these things from different angles versus just stacking redundancy. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's my take on that. I know everyone can't be a perfect client, but how do you handle clients that are obviously not compliant? That's a good question, Kenny. I guess it depends on how they're not compliant. I've had people that want to do the right thing, but they keep making mistakes. And then I've had people that just don't care, and those are two different situations. If somebody wants to get better and they're actively trying, but they continue to make mistakes, like say for instance, they get caught off guard. They didn't realize that they were going to run out of food. And so then there's this big chunk of time that they either weren't going to eat or they had to eat off plan, That's one thing. Or if somebody just says, screw it, it's Friday, I want to be able to go out and hang out with my boys and drink, that's another thing. Either way, I don't fire somebody. I make them aware. If somebody is, let's say it this way, those are two different scenarios. If somebody is trying to be compliant, but they're making mistakes, then I'll help them understand how to not make that same mistake again. And I'll even put it that way. Like, listen, I can't promise you that you'll be able to be 100% after this, but getting good at this takes time. And there are going to be scenarios that come up that you're not prepared for. But each one of those scenarios is a learning lesson. So next time that you get caught without your food, if you had some whey protein with you, additional whey protein, you can use that to bridge the gap. Or, there's always a grocery store available, find some cooked chicken, or restaurants will make a la carte chicken for you. You did not have to eat, 2 double cheeseburgers, because sometimes that's what happens. They can't stay on plan and they're like, screw it, I got to go to McDonald's, So there's that type of not compliant. And then there's the guys that they just want to go out and do what they want to do. Yeah, everything was perfect. I was perfect on the diet, except for Friday. I went out and I drank 5 beers, and then I ate these burgers at the end of the night. And I'll say, like, it's their life, right? They're the ones that are doing this. And I will let them know that, number one, I have never worked with somebody who could successfully reach their goals while having a substantial amount of alcohol in their plan still. Like, I've worked with people who have tried, and generally they'll make progress through the week, and then it falls apart at the weekend. And then through the week, I'll explain to them what alcohol does in their bodies. I'll explain to them how it shuts down the fat loss process and turns on the fat gain process. I'll explain to them about the calories in alcohol and about how they're actually greater than the calories in carbs. And I'll explain to them what alcohol actually does in the body. Then from there, it's up to them. If they want to continue doing that, that's their call. If they expressed that they needed some sort of intervention on it, like in that specific case, that maybe they have a problem with alcohol, then maybe we could figure something out. But that starts getting a little bit beyond what a coach does and more into what a therapist does, which there is kind of a fine line sometimes in this game. And I never would claim to be a therapist, by the way, guys. I'm not ever saying I would, that's not me. But I can offer my own personal experience, like as I would one human to another, you know what I mean? And that's a topic that I can speak on out of my own experience. But yeah, it depends on the person. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to fire them because they may just not be ready to take things to that 100%. I work with a guy right now who I would like for him to train 4 times a week. He's training 2 times a week. He's been pretty good on the diet, but he still will eat some stuff off plan. But guess what? He's still making progress. Every week, he's 2 pounds down. And he's looking better. He's doing way, way better than he was before we were working together. And, I call that a win. And with time, as he continues making progress, that becomes kind of addictive, and we want to continue seeing that progress. And if we kind of gamify it, then we do the next thing that it's going to take to keep seeing that progress at the next check-in, and then we kind of get hooked on it. We get into a groove. So, we're just not everybody comes to me and they're already in that groove. It can take longer for some than others. And some people don't get into it, and that's okay too. Some people may hire me and pay me up front for, 12 weeks. We do 12 weeks. They never really stuck with it. And then they come back out of the blue like 2 years later and they're like, hey man, listen, I got to tell you, I didn't take it real serious when we worked together before. I would love to really nail it. I actually have a guy like that right now. A shout out to Kevin, who I wish I could show his pictures. I haven't had his permission and he hasn't even posted his pictures yet, but he's one of those guys who's like down over like 100 pounds, like life changing fat loss. Dude is doing incredible. He went through some life changes and he decided like, yeah, I'm going to freaking make this happen. And now he's plugged in. But I think this is like the 3rd time or 4th time he's hired me, and he never stuck with it the other times. He just wasn't in a position to be ready yet. No matter how much I care, it's not going to work if I care more than you care. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's my take on that one. What else do we have going on here? Hey guys, let's do some more super chat so Scott can get more Tren. I think I have about 15 mils right now, that should last me a freaking long time. Gamboni Law is with us. He's got a training question. I'm going to favorite that so I can come back to it. 700 to 1 gram. I can sleep like a baby. No problem. What? No absurd sides. Just feel distant and unemotional. Did I read that right, guys? 700 to 1 gram. We're talking about Tren still, right? What kind of freaking animal is this existence? What kind of animal are you, man? Okay, ashwagandha with Tren helps a lot with anxiety side effects. Right on. All right, let's get into this training thing. So, you guys know we have, and keep commenting with questions, by the way. I'll be sure to follow back up on these. All right, so here's the deal. Nag says that guy existence needs a better source. Yeah, maybe that's it, man. Like, I'm running all this Tren. Maybe it's like, not real Tren. I don't know, man. That's a lot of Tren. All right. I'll get back to everybody on the chat. So here's another thing I wanted to do is talk about increasing the intensity and learning to get legit effing strong in the gym. So you guys know we're doing the insane set of the week on Blood, Sweat, and Gear. And Justin Montgomery was one of the guys who entered the contest, and he does a brutal hack squat set. And we said, basically, we're like, yeah, it was okay. It was good. But, I think you could get more out of this. And he commented and said, Oh man, I was bummed to see the feedback because I was really proud of this set, and it made me think of an experience I had where I decided that at one point that I wanted to get good at the chest press, and I felt like I had never been like one of those guys that was wicked strong with the chest press, and so I like made it my challenge, right? And I had the 110-pound dumbbells, and I was actually at West Coast Iron, and I was like, Victoria, shoot this set of me. This is like 2018, 19. And shoot this set of me. And I, get this set of me pressing the 110s. And then I post it to Instagram and Facebook. And Big Dave Smith, who's a guy that I really respect, a really good heavy trainer, strong dude. He said to me, he was like, hey, he was like, that's, really great work there, man. Nice effort. You working on the lockout? You working on your lockout? If you tell somebody you're working on your lockout, that means you're only doing the top half of the movement, right? And I was like, that son of a bee. He's like, he's trying to troll me, And I was like, man, I always liked Dave, but screw this guy, And I don't remember if I said anything back to him. But a couple days later, I think I did. I think I did say something back to him. We had a little bit of a dialogue. And then a couple days later, I came back to him and I said, well, what should I be doing? Because I remember what it was is I felt like if I went any deeper on that, I gave everything I had on that set, first of all. You know what I'm saying? And I felt like he was kind of disrespecting me, But then I kind of stepped back and I let go of the ego. And I thought, well, he is really strong. He's a lot stronger than I am. Maybe I can learn something from him. And I did. And he taught me how to press deeper. Okay. And I had to back my weight down a decent amount. And I would say that I developed what is the best possible form and technique for the chest press that I think I could ever have. And then I learned to get strong with it. And then I got legit the strongest I had ever been in my freaking life. When I said I was like at almost 240, I was pressing then at the strongest I'd ever been in my life, from the foundational technique that I learned from Dave. So I guess what I'm saying is like, I get that, I get that you can do your best with something and that you can be proud of it and you should be, but there still is always like another level, And that's what I've kind of realized is that even with the technique I can use now that is like really good technique, it doesn't mean that like there isn't another gear. There's always for all of us, no matter what we do, there's always going to be a next step that you can take it to another level. And that's what I want to talk about with this. So let's watch this video. I've got it queued up here. This is a video that Justin left for us over at the Think Big Facebook group. And let's see here. We'll just watch the video first. And then I want to talk about like, what can we do with this to get more out of it? All right. So that's his first rep, second rep, third rep, little pause here, drops down hard. Fourth rep, pause, drops down hard. Fifth rep, and there's a lot of weight. He's giving everything he's freaking got. Boom, you can see he's about to fail there. You saw how that slowed down. When you slow down like that, that's a sign that your muscle is beginning to fail. So he's already like digging close to failure here, and he's still going to get another third rep out of it. Nice. He's got one more in him. Like he's riding the edge of failure here. Yes, and he got one more. So like it's a great set, first of all. Like I can't say like, in fact, I'm going to tell him this, that right now, he's stronger than I am. I physically couldn't do this right now. So let's put that into perspective. He's stronger than I am. But I think there's some things we could do with this to take it even further. Now, I remember when I first started, the first time I attempted fortitude training, and I went to do what do you call it, a muscle round. I got a couple. It's you get 4 reps and then you pause, and 4 reps and then you pause. And I got like a rep, and then I'd stop and hold it, and then a rep, and then I'd stop and hold it. Anyway, what I learned from that talking to Scott is that every time we stop, we're really taking a break. And that's what he had to do. Like you see that, like, as he gets into the end here, like he's pausing, right? And then he gets another one. So he just about failed there. If he were to try to get another rep right now, like instantly drop back down into it, he wouldn't be able to get back out of it. So he's got to pause. He's got to take a break. And once again, now he's going to pause. He's going to take a break. So these are almost like singles in a way. And now, like, he's not going to get, he knows he's not going to get another one from there. He's got a lot of weight on this bar. I don't think I can zoom this in, but I think I can count at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'd say that's at least 6 plates that he's got on there, maybe even a little bit more. I mean, honestly, so I would back the weight down, number one. And then I would work on Ron has talked about the term robot reps. I want every rep to look identical. You know what I mean? Let's control that negative down. And you don't have to do like a slow, super slow negative, but let's control that negative down and then drive up hard. And then when you reach the top without stopping, immediately then go back down into the negative. And the analogy that I always think of, the picture I always have in my head is in 10th grade, I took an auto shop class, and we had this model of a piston. And there's like a little crank in the back, right? And there's a piston, and the piston would go up and down, right? As you turned this crank. The piston, there was no definitive point of stopping. The piston would reach the top, and immediately, without really you even being able to tell, it would change direction. It was very interesting. There was no like stop point, it would just immediately change direction. So I'm thinking, drive up hard, and when you hit that top, then bring it back down. It takes a lot of control to do that, to be able to do a controlled negative after an aggressive drive up. You know what I mean? And this is some stuff that I learned from Big Dave is, it's that we want to drive up without using momentum. If you think about it, like if you're driving with your grandma in the passenger seat, you can drive real fast without whipping your head around, but you have to drive differently. Like when you take off the line, you have to be careful with how you're putting your foot on the gas. You don't just slam your foot to the floor. If you do, her head's going to get whipped back, and that's the momentum. We don't want that momentum. Instead, you have to ease your foot onto the gas and let the car speed up. And as it's speeding up, you can continue to bury the pedal. And before you know it, your foot's on the floor. Her head never got whipped back, right? But now we have to come up to the very top of the set with the rep where we're going to turn it around and come back down. And we want to be able to control it from the top. So, and we're coming in, that's the same thing as coming into a stop now. We can also stop quickly without whipping your grandma's head forward. So it's all in how you brake, right? So you have to be gentle in that braking and learn how to decelerate so that when you reach that top, just like that piston model, you can gently go into the negative. And just through all of this, through robot reps, through controlling the momentum, you are already stepping your game up so greatly. You are using more muscle. I guarantee you that it is taking more muscle to be able to coordinate everything that you're doing. You know what I mean? And now you're also keeping the muscle under constant tension. So like a little game that I like to play is let's say that I have enough weight on there that I can get 16 reps. Maybe I get like, we'll call it like, say I'm shooting for 16 reps on the hack squat, and I can get 12 reps without pausing, you know what I mean? Without having to take a break. And then the last 4, I have to take a break. Well, then my goal for the next time I do this would be to try to get 13 constant reps and then get the rest with pauses. And then 14, basically working your way up, building that endurance up over time to be able to do more constant reps. I think that in itself, you'll get to be stronger with that, and you'll be able to dig a lot further into the failure. So I think that honestly, this set personally, as far as like an insane set, it's a hard set. It's a great set, but I think that there's more intensity to be dug out of it. Just like if you're to do a 1 rep max, and then I were to tell you, all right, now let's get real intense. Let's try to get 2. There's no way in hell you're going to get 2, right? But if you're using a light enough weight that you can say get 20 reps, what's the chance of you getting a 21st rep? It's a lot greater because it's only, like 1/20th. Each rep is 1/20th of your max effort load. You know what I mean? So I don't know. That would be my thought though, is basically lighten the weight up a little bit and work on as many freaking constant reps as you can first. And after you can't get more constant reps, then, like a good Widowmaker, after you can't get more constant reps, then get like 3 constant reps and pause, and then get 3 constant reps and pause. And when you can't get that, get 2 constant reps and pause, and then 1 constant rep and 1 rep and 1 rep and 1 rep. And eventually then you really dig further into failure. You were just in this set, the amount of weight was just so overloaded that there was no way, you know what I mean? Because there was just no way. You failed literally, like you almost failed on that like 4 times. It was a brutal set, but I think that you can even take it further by lightening it up. That would be my thought though on it. So anyway, I hope that you guys understand where I'm coming from with that. What else do we have here? Somebody said 25 milligrams a day. I think they're still talking about Tren. Should I pull the HGH back out because I compete in 2 weeks and it's mind-boggling me. Man, 1-2 overalls 8 days ago in classic and men's physique, weighed in morning of the show at 187. In a 3-week window between shows, added HGH back in at 4 units right before bed, and now I'm 195 in 5 days. Man, that's a lot of weight to have gained, I mean, my question would be, and by the way, guys, if you're enjoying this, if you can please hit the like button. If you guys are hanging with me, it would really help. It helps to, after we're done with this, it helps other people to help find it. And maybe we'll get some new people that join the stream. And maybe we'll get some new people that subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to freaking get as many subscribers as we can this year. So thank you for that. And thank you for all your comments and stuff too. So I don't know. I mean, it depends on how you looked, man. So he weighed 187 in the morning 8 days ago, and he won 2 overalls. So I feel like you probably didn't look that bad, Did you need to be, what was that, 8 pounds fuller? I'd say this. If you won 2 overalls 8 days ago, you probably didn't need to be 8 pounds fuller. You know what I'm saying? I would guess that Oh, I would pull it, man. I mean, if I had to say one or the other, yeah, I would probably pull it. But I guess it depends on how do you look, you know? Is it all in the muscle? You know, are you just as sharp? It's a lot of weight though. If it was just even a couple pounds, you know, like 1 or 2 pounds, then heck yeah, man. Maybe you were 187 and now it's like your food has probably changed too. You know, I imagine that. Did you? Okay, I'm a little confused here. Actually, if you're still with us, let me know because he says. Let me put this. Yeah, he says. Okay, 1-2 overalls 8 days ago in classic and men's physique. Weighed in the morning of the show at 187. In 3 weeks window between shows, added back in HGH at 4 units right before bed, and now I'm 195 in 5 days. Okay, okay. I don't understand the maybe the 3 weeks is okay. 3 weeks window between shows. Okay, I'm sorry, I got you. Yeah, man. I mean that's a lot of weight, and if you're 195, if you're 8 pounds up in 5 days, how much more up is the scale gonna go? You know, is it gonna go 10 pounds up in 2 more days? It's a lot of freaking weight, man. You're holding a lot of water, you know? And at the end of the day, as a coach, I generally want to play it conservatively because I don't want to mess you up. If you had a look that could win 2 overalls 8 days ago, then I highly doubt that holding 10 pounds of water is going to be an improved look. You know what I mean? Sometimes trying to repeat what you already did is the best thing, you know? Maybe if you are going to make changes, make those changes smaller. I wouldn't want to figure out something that is such a great addition between this show and the last show. I'd usually try to, if I like experimenting and I want to see if we can get you better, but I would maybe experiment more with, you know, was there something different we could do with carbs? Maybe a little bit more or a little bit less. Did you have a little bit more room to fill out? You know, how much room? Would that mean that maybe, you know, just like a few variables I can think of, you know, maybe like a guy whose legs were a little bit washed out. Well, maybe we don't do a lot of cardio between this show and the next show. We just try to maintain, you know, but 8 pounds, man, is a lot. I would always want to be conservative because, you know, if you had it, yeah, you 110%, you know, is bad. We don't want to be at 110%. That's spilled, you know. What else do we have here? Yeah, the drinking scenario is difficult to convince clients about. But you know what? You got to understand that everybody's in their own place. And if somebody came to you for coaching, they didn't come to you because they wanted an Alcoholics Anonymous buddy. You know what I mean? And as much as I would love to see people figure that out and get that monkey off their backs, they might not be ready to, and you have to kind of accept that. But you know what? I will say this, that sometimes, you know, like I said, I've worked with people who maybe never really plugged in. It doesn't mean that you haven't planted seeds that may blossom later, you know, just like everything we do with the podcasts. You know, not everything is always going to make sense to everybody, but maybe it will make sense. There'll be a piece that makes sense to them down the road, you know, and they don't even know right now that they needed to hear it. So I kind of look at things that way. We did get some stuff on Instagram. I made a post. There was an interesting, it was kind of like a fun off topic kind of question. There's a training one here, a machine question. Want a decline press machine for my home gym. Thoughts on the Nautilus leverage decline press. Found a good deal, but I've never used it. My number one choice would be a hammer strength decline. I don't even know what this looks like. Let's see if I can pull this up. And by the way, where is... just a second, guys. All right. I got to throw this up. Bodybuilder Ram. Hi, Scott. Here from North Wales in the UK on full swing. That is British bodybuilding that I know you love. Hell yeah, man. You guys know how to do it over there. That's for sure. Let me see if I can pull this machine up. Okay. What was it called here? What was the Nautilus Leverage Decline? I'm not a huge decline press fan in general, but... Oh, I've used this machine. Okay, yeah. I've used this machine. It's a good machine. Yeah, I don't mind this machine at all. Let me grab a picture of it and I'll show you guys. Hold on just a second here. They have these at a lot of Crunch Fitnesses. This one. Have you guys used this machine before? And if so, what do you think about it? I'm curious. I'm curious to hear what you have to say. I found it to be pretty decent. In fact, I do think that the decline was pretty decent on this particular machine. I'm not necessarily a huge decline fan. You know what I really like out of a chest press machine? I like converging handles. You know what I'm talking about? I like the machines where as it comes up, the handles are pressing together. I really freaking enjoy those. Those feel great to me. In fact, I have an old plate loaded converging chest press machine out in my home gym out here. It doesn't have a way to anchor into it, so it pushes you out of the seat. Huh. Matt Sharp doesn't like it. He says that machine sucks. Who else has used that machine? You guys let me know. I'll bring the picture back up for anybody who hasn't seen it. Yeah, what do you guys think of this one? I found it, I didn't find it was bad, but I can see what Matt's saying. You know, I know they put the seat belts on the hammer strength machines, and nobody ever uses those. I've got a seat belt on one of my leg machines. I've watched It's Just Bodybuilding since episode 1. Then the others came along the way. Love Scott's deep dives. Skips and Barry's podcast is always a blast. Have used eval with Dave and enjoy your AMA podcast. Right on, man. Appreciate having you here, brother. I appreciate everybody. You guys, I appreciate all you guys taking the time to freaking come out here and hang out with me. I had 2 people give me a thumbs down here, apparently. So we had 55 thumbs ups. So out of everybody that's watching, we had 55 people over the whole time who gave me a thumbs up. I want to say thank you to that 55. And to the other 2, thanks for giving me shit. I appreciate you guys giving me the interaction too. I don't know. I feel like I would use that machine if it was for a really good price. That list price was like freaking $4,000. That's a lot of money. You know what I'm saying? I would not pay $4,000 for it. Jordan says it's a decent machine. I prefer the Jim Lico decline press over it. Man, I love Jim Lico stuff, but you're not going to find that for a good deal, I bet. Like Jim Lico in the US, I don't know how it is in other places, but Jim Lico is very expensive. For as small as those machines are, they sure are expensive. Yeah, Anthony, if you get it for a good price, then I'd go for it. But what's a good price, you know? If that thing is $4,000, what are you expecting to get it for? My leg press is different. I've got a Nautilus Explode leg press out in the gym there. In fact, I don't know if I can show it to you guys. Let me see here. Let me see if this will show up here. No, I'm not going to mess with this. Hold on. I might be able to do this. No, I don't want to mess with it. I can turn my phone on as a camera and I could walk out in the gym to show you, but I'm afraid that if I do that, I won't be able to get us back to where we are now, and then I'll just have to bail immediately. So we'll not do that. All right. What else do we have going on here? We had another question. Thank you. Rise 41 Success and Biohacking says, I'll give you a thumbs up to balance out the negative feedback. I appreciate it, man. My home gym, how much did I spend on it? So I put it together when a lot of it, you know what I can do? I could shoot a quick video of it and right now and then come back and show it to you guys. Do you guys want to do that? Let me know if you want to do that, and I'll just go and like do a quick little tour, and then I can immediately throw it up on the screen. It'd probably take me, I'd have to step away for about 1 minute though. So you guys let me know if you want to see that, and I'll go give you the quick video tour, and then we can run through it. I probably spent, let's see, 1, 2, 3. I spent under 10 grand. I probably spent way under 10 grand actually. I probably spent like 5, 6 grand on it, something like that. I got everything for a pretty good deal, but it was during the pandemic and gyms were closing down, stuff like that. All right, we got Anthony as one person who says do it. If we get, I'll tell you what, if we get 10 people to comment, if we get 10 people, we got 2 people now. Biohacking, do it, says do it. Yes, and I want to see it. And a yes. If we can get 10 people that say that you guys want to see the gym, I will shoot that quick video right now, and then we'll throw it up on the screen and we can go through a little tour of it. I don't even know if it's a mess out there or anything, so there's that. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't know what mile reps are. I probably should, I'm guessing. But I don't know what a mile rep is, so I apologize. I've heard the term, and maybe I've even seen it, but okay, what do we got here? I think it's starting to add up. We've got, let's see. We've got a yeah. There's 1. There's 2. There's 3. There's 4. There's 5. There's 6. There's 7. There's 8. Yov, I think you commented twice. There's 9. There's 10. And there's 11. What's up, Mark? Beer Boilies and Bodybuilding. Good to see you, man. The handles do converge on that machine. We have both. That one and the hammer strength, and I prefer that one over the hammer. I can do 4 plates per side with no issues, it not being anchored. Okay. Yov put it over the top here with a super chat, man. Thank you very much. All right. Okay, we got a bunch more do-its. Okay, listen. I'm going to have to bail, though, guys. You understand? I'm going to have to leave the desk here. I wonder... I was seeing if Christmas Cabbage was around, but I think he's at Dave's house now. I was going to bring him in. So don't go anywhere. I'm going to be really bummed if I come back. We've got 120 people here now. If there are less than 120 people when I come back in 1 minute, I'm going to be really upset. And I'm going to know that this was a terrible mistake and I should have never done it. All right, I'll be right back. coming. I'm here, guys. I'm here. Who left? Oh, shit. We're down to 110, guys. We're down to 110. This is a total bummer. No, that's all right. Let's see. All right. I got to airdrop this over to my computer, and then we'll be all set. Let's see. Hopefully this doesn't screw everything up. All right. And I didn't clean the gym up or anything, so it's kind of a mess right now. But it is what it is. This is real life, I guess, huh? Oh, myo reps are rest pause reps. Okay. I know what a rest pause is. I'm a huge fan of rest pause. I never heard that term. All right. Looks like we got it. So here's the gym, and I'll walk you guys through it here. So for starters, this is my treadmill over here. I've got a Life Fitness Club model treadmill from probably about a decade ago. And I love this thing. It's a great treadmill. I do all my cardio there. If you notice, I have a tripod set up right over there to the left of the setup. That way I can do videos, if I'm doing like any of the stuff you guys seen me do on Instagram, where I'm like, hey guys, come on over and watch my live stream, blah, blah, blah. I just put it in there, and then I plug Rode mics up into it. So there's that. So I'll get back to these two machines here. This is my pull down. Oh, I guess I skipped the pull down. This is my pull down though. I'll just go right here like this. Let's see if we can shrink me down a little bit. Let's see. There we go. There we go. There's my pull down. It actually feels pretty decent for what it is. It's not a fancy pull down. That was actually owned by my dad's friend, Rick. And when I was 15 years old, he bought that machine new. And I used to come over to my dad's friend's house and train back with him on Saturdays because he had a pull down. And it was pretty rare to have a pull down in your home gym at the time. So that was cool. Oops, went a little too far forward here. Let's hit play again. I'm coming around to a couple of it's mostly leg equipment that I have. So these are old universal extension and hamstring curls. So seated, I like a hamstring curl, seated hamstring curl over the prone. And they're old machines. These are from the late 80s, but they still work really well for me. And I think I paid like $400 for both of them or something. So I mean, it was like that. Plus, I had to rent a U-Haul van and then take them apart and then bring them to my house and then load them up. Bring them down in the basement. The weight stacks are so heavy to try to move into a basement. Yeah, everything had to be taken apart. Now here's my leg press. Oh, and Victoria's going to kill me because I left plates on it. So what's interesting is it's on a hinge there. So you can see that hinge behind the sled. So as it slides down, the top part, look at me for a minute, guys. As it's coming down, it doesn't just come straight down like that. It comes down like this. So it kind of scoops. It's interesting. You keep your feet really low. It's a different feeling. If you're expecting it to be a normal leg press, you're going to be sorely disappointed. It took me like 6 months to figure it out. And interestingly, because it moves on that angle, you'll find that the top plates and the bottom plates have different amount of weight because they're traveling different distances. The top plates aren't traveling nearly as far as the bottom plates are. So initially when I bought it, I just stacked up the lower pins and it just crushed me. I would put 5 plates on it and the 5 plates was like, whoa, crushed me, on each side. And then I realized that you balance them. So you balance the top pins with the bottom pins. It's kind of interesting. And then you guys could keep loading me up with more questions, by the way. We've got, what do you call it? Rower Concept 2 or whatever they're called. This is Victoria's rower. I've just gotten into using that recently. It's an older model, but it works really nicely. And then this is behind that is my Flight converging chest press. I had to take that apart to get it in the basement too. That thing's pretty heavy. Like, you don't load that up with a lot of plates. But it's nice. It has a good feel. I like that machine. That one also is probably very early 90s. And then I've got an open rack here, open hammer strength rack. My ceiling is drywalled ceiling. So because of the height, it's kind of funky. I can't get a full size rack in the basement here. So this works, you know. It's not the perfect rack. I'd prefer to have an actual cage. But, you know, this does what I need it to do. I've got my transformer bar on that. If you look over in the corner, you can see my Cadillac bar. And then, of course, I've got a traditional, 45-pound bar, too. We've got some kettlebells laying around there, bands everywhere. Like I said, it's a mess. Chains laying on the floor there. It's a mess right now. If I would have thought about doing this, I would have cleaned it up a little bit. And I'll try to put it on pause here, because you can see I got all my mutant pictures. If you look above the mirror, I've got I should have zoomed in on that. I had Ron and Dusty and Drea and Sean. And I've got a bunch of cool pictures over there. One of Tom Platt's autographed and stuff. So those are cool. These are the heavy dumbbells over here. And then those are some lighter. That stack is the I guess 10 pounds to 50s, and then the 60s, and then the rest of them are over there. And then this is my Body Master hack squat, and you can see there's a cushion underneath it. That's our dog Maddie. That's her little hiding hole. She comes down there and sleeps during the day sometimes, or if we have thunder, she'll go down there and sleep under the hack squat. That's her little spot. So yeah, that's the gist of it, guys. That's about all I got for you. So yeah, I didn't spend a ton on it, but it does what I need it to do. Nothing is new equipment, right? It's all the real old stuff, but yeah, I enjoy it, and I'm able to get pretty good workouts in. I could probably get good workouts in with even less. I love having the dumbbells. I do a lot of dumbbell work. Dumbbells, I do more dumbbell stuff than barbell stuff. So I use barbell a little bit, but I do a lot more work with dumbbells than with barbells. So anyway, yeah. What should we say about Scott while he isn't here? Meanwhile, it's a stately manner. Bruce Wayne films his home gym for the fans. Oh, I'm telling you, if I could have my way, I would have a bat cave, for real. It kind of is. The basement is my bat cave. I mean, he's sitting in here in the studio now, and then all of that was literally right outside the door here. And then to go upstairs, I just walk through the gym and go upstairs. We have a little laundry room off of the gym too. So there's my studio, there's the gym, there's the laundry room. But yeah, this is my domain that I spend most of my time down here working and hanging out with you guys. All right. What's your personal favorite form of cardio? Solo cardio, to be specific. I like the treadmill, I'll be honest. But I'm getting into that Concept 2 rower now. It's a freaking challenge, and but just standard slow steady state cardio. I'm getting my heart rate up a little bit higher. I'm allowing it to get up to. It depends. If I'm post workout cardio, my heart rate's already elevated from training, so it's easier to keep it up. I might keep it up around 130, 140, and I might do an hour of cardio like that, believe it or not. And it feels good, and it's pushing my endurance, pushing my lungs. So I like it. What would I look to add to the gym next? I feel like I'd have to rearrange things and tighten it up some more, because right now I have nice aisleways to kind of walk through the basement and all that. So the only thing I'm really missing is some type of a row machine. On the pull down, it does have a low cable. and I can set up to do like a low cable pulley row. But I would like to have like a chest supported T-bar that would fit in here. It wouldn't be my number one pick for a back machine. Like I would like to have a selectorized, even like a Life Fitness model, the row where you're sitting upright, you face into the machine and you pull it in like this, and it's got a selectorized stack. I'd love one of those, but it would be a pain in the ass and it would take up a lot of room. But what I could fit in here is a chest supported T-bar. So something like that would be cool, you know. That way I would have two machines. That's way I'd have enough. I'd have like everything I needed really then. I mean, I pretty much do now. I'd also like a pec deck, but I won't have the room. So I you have to, beggars can't be choosy when you have, limited space. The dumbbell rack takes up a lot of space, you know. KS Barry says that the rower and assault bike are their favorites because they are such a challenge. Yeah, man. So with my lungs, having issues with them, I really couldn't push that hard. But now that I can, I'm kind of enjoying that challenge too. The rower is pretty freaking intense. Victoria will get on that rower for like 25 minutes and just freaking wail on it. I'll do 10 minutes sometimes, but it's not my normal thing, Yeah, Batcave would be awesome. I've seen like videos on YouTube of guys that have like built underground bunkers like behind their house. They're expensive. Like we're talking like they'll invest like 200,000, right? Into some crazy cool underground layer that's like on their property. They have like an additional basement now, and they'll like set up their band equipment in there and, have their man cave set up. That would be so cool. I'd like keep my guns in there and stuff, It'd be fun. Can't have a gym subsidized by peptide sales like Chase. Hey, give me time, guys. And if you shop with our affiliates, I might be able to, but I can't talk about those affiliates here. All right. Jennifer is on her way to film her next hardcore set of the week. So listen, Jennifer, you can't win 2 weeks in a row. That said, if you get a good hardcore set, we'll still play it. And if it's a different exercise, you might be able to win. So we'll see about that. I'm recording with the guys on Wednesday, so we'll be doing that live too on the Think Big Live channel if you guys want to tune in. Yes, those are asbestos floor tiles. Good eye, Greg. Good eye. They're not going anywhere, my friend. I'm just leaving them. Ooh, favorite fruit to add to meals. So I don't add a lot of fruit to meals, but I do split an apple. We get like the large apples, and we'll split one of those every night. We'll also get pears, and we don't really eat them as part of our meals, but we'll like split a pear during the day, or we'll get raspberries, blackberries, a lot of blackberries, and then just wash them and keep them in the fridge as a snack. So, but I don't have like a specific like meal one, I'm eating a cup of berries type thing. I love fruit though. What do you think of SARMs pro hormones? Are they worth taking at all? It depends what we're talking about. In general, though, I would say no. I would say that, it is MK. You guys tell me, is MK, Carterine, GW501516, is that considered a SARM? Because I don't think it really is. It's not really a selective androgen receptor modulator, right? But when we talk about the actual SARMs, YK11 seems to be gaining popularity again. I don't really think there's an advantage to them, honestly. I don't. I think that they were more or less a failed experiment. The idea was that they would be selective, and they aren't nearly as selective as we once thought they were. The results are not as, what's the word I'm looking for, consistent as what we know through the experience we've had with the tried and true anabolics. I think that there are some really amazing new concepts out there now in performance enhancement, but when we're going down the road of specifically anabolic compounds, like specifically, this type of thing, I think that there are better options, but that doesn't mean that all new things are bad. It generally, the way it works out is that, put it this way, people who are at the high level aren't using a lot of SARMs. SARMs are kind of more of like the gateway. It's usually because it's maybe more accessible for somebody at first, and it gives results like a steroid to a degree. I think that, I've experimented with a good deal of them and worked with people who have. I just don't see them as panning out in the same way. That said, you don't hear as much about people promoting, like, you don't hear content that says, like, you guys, there's all the benefits of Tren. It's like nobody's going to make money off of that other than your gear dealer, right? But you do hear things that people do get commissions on. That's kind of the way I see it. You know what I mean? And SARMs and all that stuff, that's kind of part of that bag that I think that sometimes there's a sales pitch attached to learning about, why this SARM is so great. I think that's what it's been. There was a big push for SARMs. What was it now? It had to be like 2016 to 18, somewhere in there. And D&P, those things were getting really promoted heavily. And there happened to be somebody who had a store set up and was selling these things domestically, and those things were really hot. And it was kind of like, we're on the cutting edge of anabolic science and all of this. It didn't last, it just didn't last. So that would be my take on it. Did I already do an update on SLU? I really don't have a huge update on SLU. I initially started it at 400 per day, 400 micrograms split into 2 doses. I may or may not have said this. I do believe that there is benefit to using it on an empty stomach. I just intuitively, something tells me that. In fact, I'm due for my 2nd dose of the day about now. So while I'm thinking about it, I'll make sure that I take my vitamins. I'll tell you what. After a month of 400, I felt like I may be getting diminished returns. I went to 500 and I definitely felt a boost. I haven't felt it drop yet, and it's been probably about another 6 weeks now since that I went up. And March, April, about 6 weeks. So looking back, I don't know if I got diminished returns or if I just got used to the effect. I have a lot more that I do want to say about mitochondrial function, but I need to do some more research on that first. I'm starting to see that it might not be the best bet for everybody, and that not everybody is going to get the same benefit. I do believe that I've dealt with some dysfunction and some hypoxia from, having gotten sick that is getting reversed or alleviated. But for people that don't necessarily have those issues, some of these things might not necessarily be as beneficial. Like one thing like methylene blue could potentially be detrimental for people that already are really healthy. I've got some stuff on this. I need to do some more research before I can talk about it. But it's I'm starting to see, though, and I've always suspected this, that that like boosting our mitochondria, like we all say like, yeah, I want more of that, but were you missing that to begin with? You know, I don't know. And I'll get more into that later. And I am, part of this stems too from seeing some people getting like an amazing effect from these mitochondrial enhancers, and other people like not really noticing anything from them. You know, it's rare that people don't notice anything, but there is definitely variation in how much they notice. You take somebody like me, I'm at that extreme end where it's like sunshine and rainbows. And then there's other people that say, you know what? I notice that I have a little bit more endurance when I do cardio, and that's it, you know? So there is variation in the response that we have. So yeah. 40 years of construction management, great home gym setup, Scott. Thank you, Greg. I appreciate it, man. What else do we have here? Did I miss some stuff? Because I'm seeing a conversation here that I'm not sure where that started. Oh, carnivore muscle. Um, okay. Endosarm. It's a PPAR agonist. So you're right, Scott. I guess it's an exercise mimetic. Okay, that being GW or cardarine, GW501516. I do think that stuff definitely has some benefit, and it is different than, it's not like a true, it's not doing it's something in androgen, you know, it's not working on the androgen receptor. So I don't quite see it as being in that, but I wanted to say that because I didn't want to include everything as being a SARM, you know. I didn't want to include MK677 as being a SARM, just because all these things are kind of, you know, coming from the same types of places. Have I tried NAC on the lungs? Yeah, you know, I hadn't really noticed a big difference with it, but I definitely am a big fan for sure. All right. I think I had one other question here from the, what was this? From Instagram. Let's see if I can pull this one up, because it was kind of a fun one. And then maybe we'll leave the day on that if you guys don't have any other questions or topics. Hold on just a second here. Let's see what they said. Okay. What are the top 5 features, businesses, etc. that a city needs to have to be the best environment for a serious bodybuilder? Good gym is obvious, so you can't count that. I think that's a fun question, and I would love to hear what you guys have to say too. What would make for a good city to live in for bodybuilding? I'm going to say, so I'm going to go into a different direction than I initially would have thought, okay? And you guys comment. I'll be watching the comments here. You tell me if you have some of your own. And lightweight baby, yeah, let me get back to you on that, because yeah, that is very possible, and I can talk about it. And I see that Sunshine Man has a question too. All right, we'll cover those. So what do you guys think of this? I'm going to tell you what's a facet, like 5 facets of a city that's great for bodybuilding. I'm going to say good cost of living, like low cost of living, you know, because bodybuilding isn't cheap. As a coach, you know, I live in Detroit. Cost of living here is good. You know, I own my home. Number 1, I own my car. Number 2, my taxes aren't terrible here, meaning like I don't have those 2 bills to contend with now. You know, that means that, and I'm able to do that because Detroit isn't an expensive place. It's definitely, it's getting more expensive now. But it's an easier place to live versus like if you're trying to live in Los Angeles, you know, if you're living, like I have a friend who was in Santa Monica, and she was spending so much in rent each month that it's hard, you know, and then a gym membership in Santa Monica is going to be like 3 times the price of, you know, Metro Detroit. And then finding foods is difficult, especially she didn't really like to drive. So it was like, what's the local store in downtown, you know, Santa Monica by the beach? It's like all that stuff is going to be expensive. So I would say number one is cost of living. You know, that would be my number one. All right, what do we have here? Bodybuilding city needs great weather, outdoor parks, good food, cuisine, holistic health services. Yeah, I think all those things would be good. I like good energy from a town, you know? But you know what though? Here in Detroit, it gets cold as hell in the winter, right? But I always kind of looked at it as like grow season, where like I don't need to go outside. I just need to get in the gym and lift. It can be anything it wants outside. I'm a freaking furnace because I'm on like 1.5 grams of gear, and I'm, you know, 30 pounds heavier right now because it's off season. I've got a big old flannel and sweats on, and, you know, I'm just going to stay in the gym and just, I don't need to be distracted by a nice town. I just need to freaking lift weights and get big. That was my mindset at one point, you know? Yeah. Yeah, so I'll say that. Gosh, I'm trying to think. I'm not going to give them 5. I think that Rise 41 did a great job. But I'll try to think of one more. I said cost of living. You know, good gyms was already mentioned. I think cost of living kind of covers the food thing. I guess that's all you really need. Isn't like you don't need much. Like I guess like I mean, Rise 41 said like outdoor parks. You don't really need outdoor parks to be a good bodybuilder. It's nice, like it makes for a nice low stress lifestyle, I suppose. You know what? I think a good blue collar town is good for bodybuilding. Like blue collar people, they're just hard workers. There's no excuses. There's a little more roughness. I think that a little bit of a rougher place where you need to protect yourself from the outside world. That you're going to grow some more muscle. You'll probably be more stressed that way. Low stress. Okay. How about that one? Low stress. Wherever you can live, that's not going to be stressful, you know? That's another aspect too of cost of living. But like, man, if I was like living in, and it's just me personally, I couldn't handle like living in New York City with like all the cars and the sounds and the traffic and the people. Like I'm not used to that. Maybe I would get used to it, you know, but I like calmness, you know? So I'd say that. I'd say low stress. What do we have here? Where I live, all gyms are 24/7 access except the Y, and it's largely blue collar. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And Jack is right. It needs to be somewhere in England. Yes. I agree with that 100%. When's the next podcast with Kuba? It's coming out this week, my friend. So stay tuned. All right. What were these 2 questions we had up here? So, yeah, Detroit winter would kill me. I'm a tropical person. Bonus, you can show off your muscles at the beach year round. Okay, yeah, fair enough. I appreciate that, man. Oh, yeah, parks for your fasted cardio. That is a great idea. You know what? I never worked with somebody who lived by the mountains who actually like went out and climbed or like did hiking. But I always thought it would be cool if there was like a little hill, a mountain hike that would take like 30 minutes to do. I would love to say like for my cardio, you know, I'm going to walk the hill 1 time. Okay. And then like further in prep, then I'm going to walk the hill 2 times. And then maybe if I really had to go crazy, I'd walk the hill 3 times. I don't know. I always thought that would be a cool way of like gauging my cardio, you know. How much cardio are you doing? 1 hill. I do 1 hill a day, you know. By the end, I'm like, oh man, it got tough. I got up to 2.5 hills. I guess 2.5 hills would be go halfway up and come back down. So I guess you could do that. But yeah, these questions. Okay. So where was this? I did some research, including watching episode 3-4 times of about insulin, and tried 3 units, like you said, to start with, and the pumps were crazy. I couldn't believe how I looked in the gym after a few sets. That's awesome, Anthony. That wasn't the question I was looking for. Okay, yeah. Lightweight Baby said, hey, Scott, GH is aggravating my gyno. Ever heard of this? Yeah, that happened to my friend VJ. Wish he was here. He could talk about it. We talked about it on Bodybuilding Nerds, but like I didn't understand that at the time, a decade ago. But look both into prolactin and progesterone and see where those are at. And I would definitely pull the growth out until you get that figured out. So yeah, he says, just on TRT with E2 in the 30s, gyno would normally be dormant. So yeah, if you start messing with prolactin and progesterone, then you may start to notice that what normally doesn't bother you starts to bother you. So I definitely like figure that out ASAP before you go any further into the growth. Basic question, but I've got some gyno symptoms from 400 tests. Would you continue 400 with an AI or stack with Primo or EQ type AI compounds? Really, I think you could go either direction. And this actually reminds me, I spoke to a former client today who was told by a TRT clinic that they don't prescribe AIs, that for anything under 250 milligrams a test, that, you know, they deem it, this place, it's in that mindset of demonizing AIs, that they're this terrible thing. Well, they basically told him, like, you can't get gyno from that. And now he's got gyno. So he took it upon himself to like get on tamoxifen and now asked me what to do. But yeah, I think that there's been a big backlash against AIs. I mean, you've got a couple options here, my friend. You know, you're already on 400 milligrams a test. I guess I would say this, you know, what's so getting on an AI, right? There's going to be a cost to that, right? That AI is not going to, depending on what you use, maybe you use Aromacin, that might be a little bit of a more gentle approach than a Arimidex. Lately, I feel like everybody says, no, you don't want to take an AI. Like, stay away from an AI. Instead, you take 400 Primo to counter that. Well, what if this is Sunshine Man's first cycle and he doesn't want to run nearly a gram of gear? You know, he probably does. We all do. But you know what I'm saying? Cost to benefit, a small amount of Aromacin versus doubling the amount of anabolics you're using. You know, I think you got to weigh that out for yourself, you know, and look at what your goals are. But I don't see harm in, if we are going to push our testosterone up into a super physiological level, that we also maybe want to use a compound to control the estrogen, to be, you know, we don't want that to be so high that we're getting issues from it. You could run high estrogen, that's not a problem. But if it's high estrogen to the point where it's causing you issues, then, you know, which at 400 milligrams a test, I would suspect at some point that, you know, you may experience an issue. You know, if you wanted to be really careful with how you handled it, you could keep some Nolvadex on hand. And if you started to get any sensitivity, pop the Nolvadex. That's going to obviously then like bind up to the receptors and block any gyno from further happening. And then from there, you can figure out what your estrogen levels are. You know, I mean, generally I do this. Usually whatever we're doing, AI or no AI, generally if I don't know somebody, we might not start an AI, or we might start a low dose of an AI out the gate with 400 tests. And 3 weeks into the cycle, I would definitely get my estrogen checked. 3, maybe 4, and see where that's at. And if it's way out of range, then maybe I'd want to do something to just kind of take the edge off of that. And it doesn't mean that you have to bring it all the way back down to below 40, but when we start getting higher, everybody's different. You might get gyno issues at 100 on estrogen. It might be, I've had estrogen at like 250, 300, and I didn't even know it, like it wasn't a problem for me. For somebody else, that might be a complete disaster. So, I think it depends on how you respond. Everybody aromatizes different. Everybody also clears estrogen differently. We always think about us, how much are we aromatizing? We don't always think about, well, how quickly are we clearing it? Because if you're good, if your liver's healthy and you're properly clearing estrogen out of your system, you may not have too much of it pool up, versus if you're a little bit sluggish, you might retain more estrogen, and that will then begin to pool up over time and eventually cause some type of an issue. So, there are natural options you can use, like calcium deglucarate. You could get on 2,000 milligrams of that. I wouldn't start 2,000 out the gate, but you could start with, say, 1,000 and work your way up if you need it. And that might get you to clear it quickly enough that you don't need as much AI or any AI. That's possible, but it all comes back to getting lab work done and seeing where you're at. If you are an experienced user and you want to double the amount of androgens, double the amount of gear that you're using, then definitely you could add in, Primo would definitely be Primo would be more likely to work for you. I found with EQ, it works for some. It doesn't always work though for everybody. What else do we have here? Cue the Jeopardy song. I would look more if I would look more into potentially looking at prolactin and seeing what you could do with that. But I definitely would still check progesterone, check prolactin, and just to kind of cover all your bases and see where you're at. We've got somebody who just started calcium deglucarate. How much are you taking, and have you done any lab work since you started it? I'd be curious to hear. Yeah, man, it's my pleasure to help, dude. And listen, like I said, man, get your labs done. You can go over to, I have no affiliation with Merrick, but for like $10, you can get your estrogen checked at Merrick. I don't think that's ultra sensitive, but you should do all right without an ultra sensitive test for the situation. And see where you're at. Rise 41, you've got a podcast. Drop me an email, man. Just hit me up, mcnallydiets@gmail.com. I've been pretty slammed with all the shows that we're doing, but I'd love to set something up with you, man. We'll make something happen. I'm still waiting to hear back. I want to hear back about what he has seen with calcium deglucarate. I've seen some people get a really good response from it, and it's usually people that are a little bit more sluggish at getting rid of estrogen. Okay, here we go. Okay, he doesn't have it yet. He's going to get his lab. Just got his labs drawn, and he's going to find out. So 1,200 to 2,400 milligrams a day. So yeah, calcium deglucarate, it's not a cheap supplement. Basically what happens is there's a process called glucuronidation where the body prepares estrogen to be broken down and removed from your system. And I'm gesturing this way because it removes it to your digestive tract, and it removes it through when you poop. Basically, you poop it out. If that said, that's important for us to not get constipated, because if you're constipated and you have a bunch of these waste estrogens in your waist, they will eventually begin to reabsorb back into your bloodstream. And now they're not only estrogen, but they're like an unhealthy form of waste estrogen that was prepared to be eliminated. But yeah, there's a few things you can do overall with glucuronidation and ensuring that your body is good at preparing estrogen to be removed. The number one thing comes down to diet, like having a good, healthy diet, which I assume us in bodybuilding that we all do. Keeping like good, healthy gut flora in our systems, trying to keep stress down, making sure that we get good sleep, making sure that we are eliminating all those things are super important. And then from there, if we needed additional help, then we can also use calcium deglucarate, and the deglucarate will help with that process of glucuronidation. What's my take on artificial sweeteners? So I don't think they're terrible, and if we just look at bodybuilding from a competitive perspective, they're not generally going to harm you. In fact, I don't think that they're going to harm you in many ways, but it all comes down to using things in balance. If you're using a ton of artificial sweeteners, I think they can become a problem. They can affect your digestion negatively. That can become a problem. If you start screwing up your digestive tract, you're going to have other issues. I have seen when people overuse artificial sweeteners that they tend to hold more fluid. So you definitely still, it's not like just a freebie. You still want to use some thought and consideration with that, and practice moderation. Find middle ground with how many artificial sweeteners you're using. But that said, Coke Zero, it's not going to be a problem. Should you maybe cut it out right before a show? Might not be a bad idea, or reduce it. But I don't have a problem with them. So from what I understand, there was like a whole campaign to shut down NutraSweet. That basically Big Sugar was trying to make it look terrible. All the studies that we hear about with cancer, I don't think any of that stuff was ever true with NutraSweet. That said, I used to use Splenda, which is an artificial sweetener, and Victoria got me turned on to stevia. And when I first tried stevia, it had this funky taste to it that I couldn't handle, but now I'm used to it and I can't tell anymore. So I try to lean towards stevia if I'm going to flavor my coffee or my oatmeal. But if I'm going to drink some soda, then I'm probably going to be drinking, aspartame, because I do like Coke Zero and Diet Mountain Dew and Diet Wild Cherry Pepsi. So those things are all on my list. Bro, I'm about to run a cut cycle of Test P 250 milligrams and Test Mast P 250 milligrams for 12 weeks. Any advice? I would say that that's a low dose cycle, and I think that you're going to do fantastic with it, man. If you got all your, if you've got everything else in order, it's all going to come down to your training. It's all going to come down to your nutrition. And I will tell you this, that over the years, I've seen a lot of people get into shape, and I have seen some people who can get into shape more easily than others. And it's usually the guys that train the hardest are the guys who get into the best shape. And the guys who train the hardest are the guys that grow the most muscle. So answer is train hard. The harder you train, obviously within your capabilities, we don't want you to overtrain, but the more you actually give, the heart you put into your workout, the better progress that you'll make. So there's that. So anyway, guys, I appreciate you hanging with me. This has been a lot of fun. We've maintained over 100 freaking people for this whole time. And we're up to 90 likes now, which is awesome. Hey, if you guys haven't hit the like button yet, then please do, because it really does help me out a ton. Me just hanging out with you guys and talking, it's awesome. I love doing it. but I also love seeing the show do well. You know, I want to see this thing get a bunch of numbers after we're done too. And by you guys hitting the like button now, that's going to help it so that when it goes into like syndication and rebroadcast, that way more people will be able to see it. So, you know, if you enjoy the shows, then, you know, all of your likes and comments and all that stuff, it is huge. In fact, check this out. I didn't even use it today. I got so excited that I didn't even hit the button. Do I still have it around here? I wonder if I do. I had prepared this. Damn it. I prepared this, guys, and I didn't even use it. Like, share, subscribe, comment, and ring the bell. Look at that. We got some shit going on here, guys. Anyway, you know, and if you want to support the programming, we have a Patreon. I'll make sure the link is in the description here. You know, or if you, another great way to support the programming is to buy something from one of our advertisers or one of our affiliates using our codes. The code is THINK, no matter where you go, whether you go to one of the peptide places that I'm not mentioning here, or you go to, you know, True Nutrition, use the code THINK and you will get some additional savings. And it definitely does help to support the programming. I don't make anything additional off of True Nutrition, but they do pay for advertising. And so by them seeing the code being used, then that lets them know, like, hey, let's continue giving Scott money to advertise for us, you know? On the other hand, the other places that I won't talk about, that does make a substantial difference in me being able to make this, you know, worthwhile for me. So anyway, guys, I'm going to get back to it. I've got a bunch of coaching stuff to get done. I have to write a diet today. I hope you guys have a good day. Have you worked out yet? That's my question to you. I already got my workout in. It was just an arms day today, and man, it was fun. I got all freaking pumped up this morning. And yeah, we're going to have some new stuff coming out. So tomorrow we'll put Kuba out. I believe tomorrow, maybe, excuse me, Thursday, Kuba's coming out. Wednesday, we've got drugs and stuff. And then, of course, Friday, we've got blood, sweat, and gear. Also, you know, over on the live channel, I'm going to be recording drugs and stuff tomorrow morning at 10 or 11 in the morning, Eastern Standard. And Wednesday at about 6 p.m., we'll be recording 2 episodes of blood, sweat, and gear. And yes, the code is THINK. No matter where you go, to True Nutrition or Parabolic or Amino, we won't mention those, anything else. Just say that. Thank you guys. You guys are freaking awesome. And yeah, thank you for hanging with me. I really appreciate it. Hope you all have a good rest of your day. And let's definitely do this again soon.